All right, listeners, buckle up, because we're diving into some seriously spicy political tech today.
Ooh, this is going to be good.
Right. Forget about Dogecoin as a cryptocurrency. We are talking DOGE, the government overhaul.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, you heard right.
Whoa.
And the masterminds behind it.
Let me guess.
It's a real power duo.
Okay.
Elon Musk, the tech titan,
Okay.
and Donald Trump, the political disruptor.
I should have seen that coming.
I know, right?
That's wild.
It's a combo you don't see every day.
No, you don't.
And get this, the source that tipped us off.
Oh, this, I got to hear.
It's a YouTube video
Okay.
titled Se pegó el texto.
And what's that mean?
It translates to the text stuck.
Interesting.
It's like we're decoding a secret message here,
Right.
getting a first look at a story that could blow up.
Yeah, it feels like we're on the absolute cutting edge here.
Absolutely. So
Right.
let's break it down. What exactly is DOGE?
Okay, so DOGE stands for Department of Governmental Efficiency.
Okay.
Think of it as Trump's baby,
Okay.
but with Musk as the architect. And Vivek Ramaswamy, you know, that entrepreneur who's been making waves lately, he's a key player too.
Interesting combo.
Right. And their goal,
Yeah. What is it?
no less than modernizing the entire U.S. government,
Wow.
using the speed and agility of, you guessed it, Silicon Valley.
So they basically want to swap out red tape for venture capital.
Exactly. The video paints a picture of a government that's bogged down
Oh, bet.
by what they call budgetary waste and administrative procedures.
Ugh. Don't even get me started on that.
You know, the kind of stuff that makes you want to tear your hair out when you deal with any government agency?
Oh, tell me about it.
DOGE aims to blast through all of that,
Okay.
promising a leaner, more efficient machine.
Okay. I am intrigued, but how are they actually planning to pull this off?
All right, let's break it down.
Please.
They've got three main pillars:
Okay.
reduce waste, simplify bureaucracy, and modernize tools.
So basically, cut the fat, make it user-friendly, and bring in the tech.
Bingo?
Now, the tech part is where I really perk up. They're talking about AI and blockchain, right?
Ah,
I mean, it's so straight out of a sci-fi movie.
it does sound futuristic, but they're serious.
Really?
Yeah, imagine a government where AI handles all those tedious tasks.
Like what? Give me an example.
Processing applications, crunching budget numbers, maybe even answering your questions via chatbots.
No more waiting on hold for hours with the IRS.
Exactly.
Okay, now that would be a game changer.
Right?
But what about jobs? Won't people be worried about AI taking over their roles?
That's a valid concern, and it's definitely something we'll delve into deeper later.
Okay, good.
But for now, let's stick with the tech.
All right.
On the blockchain front, Musk and Ramaswamy are proposing to use it for total transparency in government spending.
So every single dollar is accounted for like a public ledger anyone can access.
Precisely. They argue this would not only deter corruption,
It makes sense.
but also rebuild trust in government institutions. I mean,
Yeah.
how many times have we heard about funds disappearing into some black hole?
Yeah, that's a constant theme in politics, isn't it?
For sure.
But blockchain, isn't that mostly for cryptocurrency?
Yeah.
How would it even work for something as complex as the federal budget?
That's where it gets really interesting. And we'll unpack the technical details in a bit. But first, let's not forget the elephant in the room: deregulation.
Oh.
Musk has been railing against what he sees as bureaucratic overkill for years,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to energy and industry.
So is DOGE basically his way of hacking the system from the inside?
It could be seen that way. The video definitely pushes the idea of streamlining regulations to unleash innovation. It's like they're trying to inject some Silicon Valley DNA directly into the government's bloodstream.
Okay, so we've got AI streamlining services, blockchain, tracking every penny in a bonfire of regulations to stoke the innovation engine.
Yeah.
It's ambitious. I'll give them that. But is it realistic, or are we just getting a glimpse of a utopian fantasy?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. On the one hand, the potential benefits are pretty tantalizing.
I can imagine.
A government that's actually user-friendly, efficient, and maybe even saves taxpayers money. That's a dream scenario for a lot of people.
Right. But on the other hand, you have to wonder if this whole Silicon Valley mindset is the right fit for the complexities of government. I mean, it's one thing to disrupt the tech industry,
Yeah.
but can you really move fast and break things when you're dealing with the lives of millions of people?
That's a great point, and one that critics are definitely raising.
I bet.
There's also the question of whether this focus on efficiency might come at the cost of essential services,
Like what?
like education and healthcare.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a tech-driven utopia. But we have to consider the potential downsides, too. Are we trading a bloated bureaucracy for a cold, heartless machine?
And let's not forget the political dimension of this.
This is where it gets messy.
This whole DOGE thing could become incredibly divisive, with Trump supporters seeing it as a victory and his opponents viewing it as a power grab.
Yeah, draining the swamp versus Silicon Valley takeover. It's a recipe for political fireworks.
Definitely.
So where do we go from here? How do we make sense of this whole DOGE situation?
Well, I think the first step is to really dig into the specifics of their proposals, and to understand how these technologies would actually be implemented and what the potential pitfalls might be.
Sounds like a plan. But before we get lost in the technical weeds, there's one detail from the video that's been bugging me.
Oh, what's that?
They said he flipped the table like Mansour.
Hmm.
Who is this Mansour, and what does table flipping have to do with government reform?
To be honest, that one has me stumped too. The video doesn't give us any context.
Really?
Yeah, it could be a reference specific to Spanish-speaking culture or maybe just some insider jargon.
Well, I'm not letting this Mansour mystery slide.
Okay.
We need to find out who this table flipper is.
Right.
And what message they're trying to send. But for now, I think it's safe to say that this DOGE proposal is one giant question mark. Is it a revolutionary leap forward or a risky gamble that could backfire spectacularly?
Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, if DOGE moves forward, it has the potential to change the relationship between citizens and their government in some pretty profound ways.
All right, listeners, that's the overview of DOGE. The players, the goals, and the potential for both disruption and disaster. Stay tuned, because next we'll unpack the technical details of their proposals and explore the real-world implications of this ambitious plan.
Buckle up, because we're going deep into the heart of DOGE. And who knows, maybe we'll even solve the mystery of Mansour along the way.
And maybe even get a table flipped on us.
Hey, I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay, so we've established that DOGE is ambitious, to say the least.
Yeah, no kidding.
But let's get down to brass tacks here. How are Musk and Ramaswamy actually planning to implement this tech revolution in government?
Well, they're not just talking about slapping a new interface on the old system.
Right.
They're proposing a fundamental shift in how the government operates.
Okay.
Starting with the integration of AI into practically every level.
We touched on this earlier, but let's dive a little deeper. What does an AI-powered government actually look like? We're talking like robots roaming the halls of Congress.
Not quite robots, but think about all the mind-numbingly tedious tasks that government employees currently handle.
Oh, yeah.
Processing paperwork, managing data, answering routine inquiries. Musk believes AI can automate a huge chunk of that.
Okay.
Freeing up human resources for more complex issues.
So less time pushing paper, more time for actual problem solving. I can see the appeal there. But isn't there a risk of creating a system that's efficient, but also impersonal and maybe even unfair? What if the algorithm makes a mistake, or worse, discriminates against certain groups of people?
That's a crucial point, and it's where things get really tricky. AI is only as good as the data it's trained on.
Right.
And as we know, human bias can easily seep into algorithms.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why Musk is emphasizing the need for transparency and rigorous testing of any AI system implemented by the government.
So it's not just a matter of throwing AI at the problem and hoping to the best.
Yep.
You need to build in safeguards.
Right.
And ensure that these systems are constantly being evaluated and refined.
Exactly. And that's where the collaboration with experts in AI ethics and governance comes in.
Okay.
It can't just be a tech-driven solution. It needs to be a human-centered one.
That makes sense. But let's move on to blockchain. This is another area where the practical implementation seems pretty hazy. How do you even begin to track trillions of dollars in government spending on a blockchain?
It's a massive undertaking, no doubt about it. But think about how blockchain already works in the financial world.
Okay.
Every transaction is recorded in a secure and transparent way,
Right.
making it virtually impossible to tamper with the data.
So you're basically creating a permanent, auditable record of every dollar spent by the government, and anyone can access this information.
That's the idea. It would be like a giant, publicly accessible spreadsheet updated in real time.
Whoa.
No more shady backroom deals. No more wondering where your tax dollars are actually going.
I can see how that could be incredibly powerful, not just for accountability, but also for public engagement.
Right.
Imagine citizens being able to actually track how their money is being used to see the impact of government spending on their communities. That could really change the dynamic between the people and their representatives.
Absolutely. It could lead to a much more informed and engaged citizenry.
Yeah.
And potentially even more responsible spending by the government itself. After all, who wants to be caught wasting taxpayer money when everyone's watching?
Right. It's like having a constant public audit. But let's be realistic. Implementing blockchain on this scale would be a logistical nightmare. We're talking about integrating countless government systems and agencies, not to mention training people to use this technology. Is it even feasible?
It would be a massive undertaking, no question. But Musk and Ramaswamy argue that the technology is already there.
Okay.
And the potential benefits outweigh the challenges.
I see it.
They see it as a long-term investment that will ultimately pay off in terms of efficiency, transparency, and trust.
Okay, so they're betting big on blockchain. But let's not forget the other big piece of the puzzle, deregulation. This is where Musk's libertarian leanings really come into play, right?
Definitely. He sees regulation as a major roadblock to innovation, particularly in sectors like energy and transportation. His argument is that the government needs to step back and let entrepreneurs flourish to create an environment where new ideas can thrive without being stifled by bureaucratic red tape.
But isn't there a danger in going too far with deregulation? I mean, regulations are there for a reason, to protect consumers, workers, and the environment.
That's the key, finding the right balance. Musk isn't advocating for a complete free-for-all.
Right.
He's talking about targeted deregulation, getting rid of rules that are outdated or overly burdensome, without compromising safety or fairness.
So less red tape, more green lights for innovation. I can see the appeal, but I'm still wary.
Yeah.
It feels like there's a fine line between fostering entrepreneurship and creating a Wild West where corporations can run amok.
That's a legitimate concern, and it's one that lawmakers would need to address very carefully if DOGE were to move forward. You need a system of checks and balances to ensure that deregulation doesn't come at the expense of public safety or the common good.
Right. And let's not forget the potential impact on government jobs. We talked about AI automating tasks.
Yeah.
But what about the people who currently perform those tasks?
Yeah.
Are they just going to be out of work?
That's a big question, and one that Musk and Ramaswamy haven't fully addressed in the video.
Really?
They argue that DOGE would create new jobs in the tech sector.
Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily help the people who might be displaced from their current government positions.
So there's a potential for economic disruption here, both positive and negative.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, any talk of government job losses is going to be politically explosive.
Absolutely. It's a sensitive issue and one that would need to be handled with a lot of care and planning. You can't just throw people out of work without offering some kind of safety net or retraining opportunities.
Okay, so we've got a clearer picture now of the mechanics of DOGE.
Yeah.
The AI automation, the blockchain transparency, the push for deregulation. It's a bold vision, but it's also riddled with potential pitfalls.
And that's just the implementation side of things.
Oh, boy.
We haven't even touched on the broader ethical and societal implications of a government run like a tech company.
Right, because it's not just about efficiency and innovation.
Yeah.
It's about the fundamental relationship between citizens and their government. And that's where things get really interesting and potentially very messy. We've talked about the nuts and bolts of DOGE, the potential benefits and the logistical hurdles.
Right.
But I think we need to zoom out a little bit and consider the bigger picture. What are the potential societal and ethical implications of a government that's run like a tech company?
That's where things get really fascinating and potentially concerning.
Okay.
If we shift to a model where efficiency and data-driven decision-making are paramount,
Right.
what happens to values like empathy, compassion, and social justice?
Right, because those aren't exactly quantifiable metrics that you can plug into an algorithm. Are we risking creating a system that's efficient, but also cold and impersonal, one that prioritizes outcomes over the well-being of individual citizens?
That's a valid concern. And it's one that critics of DOGE are raising pretty loudly. They argue that a tech-driven government could lead to a dehumanization of public services, where people become just data points in a vast system.
And let's be honest, we've all had experiences with automated systems that left us feeling frustrated and powerless.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're just cogs in a machine.
Well, totally.
Imagine that feeling amplified on a government scale.
Exactly. And what happens when those systems make mistakes, as they inevitably will? Who's accountable? Is it the algorithm, the programmer, or the government official who implemented the system in the first place?
Right, because if you can't appeal to a human being, if your only recourse is to argue with a chatbot or an automated phone system, that's a pretty bleak scenario.
It raises a lot of questions about due process fairness and transparency. And there's also the issue of digital literacy and access. What about people who don't have the skills or resources to navigate a tech-heavy government system? Are they going to be left behind?
So we could end up with a system that exacerbates existing inequalities, creating a digital divide between those who can access services easily and those who are shut out.
It's a real danger. And it's something that policymakers would need to address proactively. They'd need to invest in digital literacy programs, ensure equitable access to technology, and build in safeguards to protect the most vulnerable members of society.
Okay, so we've got this whole layer of ethical and societal implications to grapple with. But there's another aspect of DOGE that we haven't fully explored, the political dimension. This isn't just some abstract policy proposal. It's a power play with real-world consequences.
Absolutely. DOGE is inherently political, and it's bound to be incredibly divisive. Trump supporters are likely to embrace it as a way to drain the swamp and shrink the size of government, while his opponents will see it as a dangerous power grab by tech elites.
So instead of bridging the political divide, this could actually widen it even further.
That's a real risk, and it's something we need to be mindful of. This whole conversation about government efficiency and modernization is playing out against a backdrop of intense political polarization.
Right, and we've seen how easily technology can be used to manipulate public opinion, spread misinformation, and sow discord. Imagine those tactics being applied to a project like DOGE, with both sides using social media and AI-powered propaganda to push their agendas.
It could get very ugly very quickly. And then there's the question of international implications. If the U.S. successfully implements DOGE, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the world?
Right, because this isn't just about the United States.
Right.
It could set a precedent for other countries to follow, for better or for worse.
Exactly. Will other nations see DOGE as a model for efficient governance or as a cautionary tale of technology run amok? It's a question that will likely be debated for years to come.
Well, it seems like we've uncovered more questions than answers today. But I think that's the point of a deep dive, isn't it? To challenge our assumptions, explore different perspectives, and ultimately to think more critically about the world around us.
I couldn't agree more. This whole DOGE situation is a perfect example of how technology is forcing us to confront complex questions about the role of government, the nature of power, and the future of our society.
And there's no easy answers, no simple solutions. It's going to require thoughtful debate, careful consideration of the potential consequences, and a willingness to adapt and evolve as the situation unfolds.
Absolutely. This is a conversation that needs to happen, and it's one that will continue to evolve as DOGE itself either takes shape or fades away.
All right, listeners, that's a wrap on our deep dive into DOGE. We've explored the potential benefits, the risks, and the ethical dilemmas of this ambitious proposal, but ultimately it's up to each of you to decide what you think about DOGE.
Do your own research, engage in thoughtful conversations, and don't be afraid to ask tough questions. The future of government is at stake, and it's a future we all have a role in shaping.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep questioning everything, and keep the conversation going.